They say I was born angry. That is the first lie they ever told about me. I was born beneath the shadow of Olympus, beneath ceilings painted with victory and corridors filled with whispers. I was the son of Zeus, king of the gods, and Hera, queen of heaven. A perfect beginning, they would have you believe. But nothing on Olympus was ever perfect. My father's laughter could shake mountains, yet it rarely reached me with warmth. His eyes were always searching for conquest, admiration, or another woman to betray my mother with. Hera wore her crown like armor. She loved fiercely, but her love had sharpened into something wounded long before I understood what betrayal meant. I learned early that love and rage could live in the same heart. Perhaps that is why they feared me. Not because I was born without tenderness, because I was born with too much of it. Too much loyalty, too much fury when loyalty was broken, too much grief when those I loved were humiliated. Athena was praised for her intelligence, Apollo for his beauty, Hermes for his clever tongue, Artemis for her independence. And I was watched, measured, judged before I had even drawn my first blade. They expected violence from me. Eventually, I gave them what they wanted. I still remember the first battlefield I ever saw. The earth was torn open beneath bronze-clad feet. Spears flashed in the sunlight. Horses screamed. Men called upon the gods with blood in their mouths. I should have hated it. Part of me did. But beneath the horror, I felt something else. Truth. On Olympus, everyone smiled while plotting against one another. They spoke of honor while committing betrayal. They disguised cruelty as wisdom and revenge as justice. On the battlefield, no one pretended. Fear had a face. Hatred had a voice. Love could be seen in the man shielding his brother. Courage lived in trembling hands. War did not create every darkness inside mortals. War revealed it. When I stepped among them, their hearts thundered inside my chest. Their terror became mine. Their rage entered my blood. I did not only hear the victors, I heard the dying. Every one of them. Perhaps that is what made me wild. Imagine carrying the final scream of every soldier who ever begged the heavens for mercy. Then imagine the heavens calling you cruel for screaming back. My sister never understood me, or perhaps she understood me better than anyone and hated what she saw. Athena was war-planned from a distance. She was maps spread across polished tables. She was calculated sacrifice, disciplined soldiers, and victory achieved with minimal disorder. The poets called her noble. I was war seen from the ground. I was the mud beneath the wounded, the shield broken in two, the young soldier who forgot every lesson the moment his friend fell beside him. The poets called me savage. Athena fought for outcomes. I felt every moment. That was our difference. She believed emotion made war ugly. I believed war was ugly because people pretended emotion had no place in it. We argued often. She called me reckless. I called her cold. Neither of us was entirely wrong, but Zeus always favored her. When Athena spoke of battle, he called her wise. When I spoke of it, he looked at me as though I were something he regretted creating. Once, before all Olympus, he told me I was the most hateful of the gods. I laughed. What else could I do? A son does not cry when his father despises him. Not where anyone can see. There was a time when I disappeared from the world. Few mortals remember it. The giants Otis and Ephialtes captured me. They dragged me into darkness and locked me inside a bronze jar. 13 months. That was how long I remained trapped. No battlefield. No sunlight. No sound but my own breathing and the dull echo of my fists against bronze. I called for Olympus. No one came. At first, I was furious. Then frightened. Then silent. Gods are not meant to feel helpless. We are not supposed to know the terror of being forgotten. But I knew it. Day after day, I wondered whether my absence had brought peace. Perhaps Olympus had celebrated. Perhaps Zeus had looked around the hall, noticed the quiet, and smiled. I began to think that if I vanished forever, no one would mourn me. Hermes eventually found me. He freed me when I was near death. I thanked him, though the words felt strange in my mouth. When I returned to Olympus, the others joked about my capture. The great Ares, trapped in a jar. They laughed. I laughed with them. But sometimes, When the world grows too quiet, I still feel bronze surrounding me. Sometimes I wake unable to breathe. No one knows. I am the god of war. We are not supposed to confess that some prisons remain long after the doors are opened. Then there was her, Aphrodite. The poets write about her beauty as though beauty were all she possessed. They are fools. She was laughter in a palace built on suspicion. She was softness without weakness. She saw the wounds beneath my armor and did not immediately turn away. The first time she touched my face, I nearly flinched. No sword had ever frightened me the way tenderness did. She belonged to Hephaestus. At least, that was what Olympus claimed. A marriage arranged by power, obligation, and humiliation. Hephaestus deserved kindness. I will not deny it. He had suffered greatly. He was mocked by gods who praised beauty while calling themselves just. But Aphrodite was not an object to be awarded, and love has never obeyed law. We met in secret, in hidden chambers, under moonless skies, in moments stolen from eternity. With her, I was not the monster at the feast. I was not Zeus's hated son or Athena's disgraceful brother. I was simply Ares. She knew my violence, but she also knew what lay beneath it. I loved her because she never asked me to become harmless. She only asked me to become honest. Secrets do not remain secret on Olympus. Helios saw us. The sun sees everything and forgives nothing. He told Hephaestus, who forged a net so fine that even gods could not escape it. Aphrodite and I were caught together, exposed before Olympus. The gods gathered around us. They laughed. That is what I remember most. Not the chains, not the shame, the laughter. Poseidon bargaining for our freedom, Hermes making crude jokes, Apollo watching with amusement. They did not see love. They saw entertainment. Aphrodite held her head high, but I could feel her trembling beside me. I wanted to tear the palace apart. I wanted to silence every mouth, but I could not move. Once again, I was trapped. Once again, everyone was watching. When Hephaestus finally released us, I fled to Thrace. The mortals there called me their god and welcomed the thunder of my chariot. But I did not go there for worship. I went because there was no laughter in the mountains, only wind. Aphrodite came to me later. She said she did not regret loving me. Neither did I. I regret only that the gods taught us to feel ashamed. Love left marks upon the world. Phobos was born from us fear itself. Deimos followed terror. Mortals hear their names and imagine monsters. But they were once children. Phobos clung to me when thunder shook the palace, though he would later ride beside me and place fear inside entire armies. Deimos laughed easily when he was young. No poet remembers that. They remember what my sons became, not what they were before the world named them. Harmonia was different. Harmony. Imagine that. The daughter of war and love was harmony. There is a truth hidden there that few understand. Love without strength can be destroyed. Strength without love becomes tyranny. Harmony exists only when both learn to stand beside one another. We also had Anteros, who embodied love returned, and others whose stories became scattered across the world. I was not always a good father. Gods are rarely taught how to be good parents. We inherit power, wounds, and expectations. We pass them on before we understand them. But I loved my children. When they were threatened, something ancient and terrible rose inside me. The world called that violence. I called it fatherhood. Halorotheus, son of Poseidon, harmed my daughter Alcippe. The poets soften the story. They use careful language because truth makes respectable gods uncomfortable. But I found him, and I killed him. Poseidon demanded justice, so the gods placed me on trial upon a hill near Athens. The first murder trial. Mortals later called it. I stood before the gods while they debated whether a father had the right to avenge his daughter. They spoke of law, order, restraint. I looked at my daughter. She had already been harmed once. Now they wanted her suffering turned into an argument. I did not apologize. I told them I would do it again. They acquitted me. The hill became known as the Areopagus, the Hill of Ares. Mortals remember the court. They rarely remember the daughter. That is often how justice works. The system survives. The wounded become footnotes. Aphrodite loved Adonis. Even now, writing those words twists something inside me. Some say I killed him. They claim I became a boar and tore him apart out of jealousy. Perhaps that is true in one version of the world. Myths change depending on who is telling them. Gods learned that truth is rarely allowed to remain whole. Was I jealous? Yes. I will not lie in these pages. I had watched Aphrodite love many, just as she had watched me become entangled in blood, loyalty, and desire. But Adonis was mortal, bright, beautiful, temporary. Mortality gives love an urgency immortals can never imitate. I feared she would love him more because she could lose him. Perhaps I hated him for possessing an ending. If I caused his death, then it was not because I felt nothing. It was because I felt something so violently that it became destruction. That is no excuse. A wound does not become innocent simply because it began as love. Aphrodite wept over him, and I learned that love can survive betrayal while never again remaining untouched by it. The Trojan War. Even now, its name carries smoke. Every god chose a side, though they later blamed mortals for the devastation. Hera and Athena stood against Troy. Aphrodite defended it because of Paris. I joined the Trojans. Some say I did so only because Aphrodite asked me. Perhaps that was part of it, but I also knew what it meant to be hated by those who claimed moral superiority. The Greeks called their invasion honor. The Trojans called it survival. I walked among the fighting and felt thousands of hearts breaking at once. Diomedes wounded me with Athena's help. A mortal spear pierced divine flesh. I roared so loudly that armies trembled. The poets mocked me for retreating to Olympus. They said, "A true warrior should endure pain silently." What foolishness! Pain is not less real because a god feels it. I went to Zeus. I showed him the wound. For one moment, I was not the god of war. I was a son asking his father for help. He looked at me with disgust. Again, he called me hateful. Again, he told me my nature was unbearable. He healed me because divine blood could not be allowed to stain Olympus. But he did not comfort me. The wound closed. His words did not. When Troy fell, the night became an open grave. The Greeks dragged people from temples. Children were torn from mothers. Sacred places offered no protection. And the gods who had demanded this war called it victory. I have stood on countless battlefields. Troy was not the worst because of how many died. It was the worst because so many celebrated. I saw men become heroes in songs for acts that would have made monsters recoil. I saw women divided as prizes. I saw old men killed before altars. I saw infants condemned for the blood in their veins. Yet later, poets called me brutal. Me! As though I alone had brought war to Troy. As though Athena had not guided spears. As though Hera had not fed the conflict. As though Zeus had not watched from above, weighing fate in golden scales. They needed someone to carry the ugliness. So they gave it my name. The Amazons were called daughters of Ares. Some were my daughters in blood. Others were mine in spirit. They were warriors who refused to kneel before men simply because tradition demanded it. Mortals feared them. Naturally, they called them unnatural. I admired them. They understood that strength was not owned by one gender, one kingdom, or one god. Hippolyta carried a belt that symbolized her authority. Penthesilea fought at Troy and died beneath Achilles' hand. Her courage was praised only after she could no longer threaten anyone. That is another habit of mortals. They forgive powerful women once they are dead. I mourned her, not with tears before Olympus. Never there. But the rivers of Thrace ran red for days, and storms gathered without warning. The gods knew. They simply chose not to speak of it. Thrace has always understood me better than Olympus. Its mountains are rough. Its winters bite. Its people sing loudly and grieve without shame. There, I was not merely destruction. I was protection, courage, the force that helps someone stand when terror says run. Dogs were sacred to me. So were vultures. Though mortals dislike creatures that reveal what death leaves behind. My chariot was drawn by immortal horses whose breath carried flame. Phobos and Deimos rode with me. Enyo sometimes joined the carnage. delighted by ruin in a way even I found difficult to bear. That is another truth hidden from the songs. I did not love every part of war. I loved courage. I loved loyalty under impossible pressure. I loved the fierce refusal to abandon those who depended on you. But slaughter for pleasure, cruelty without purpose, the destruction of the helpless, those were never sacred to me. Mortals committed them and blamed my influence. The gods encouraged them and blamed my nature. I became the excuse everyone needed. Centuries passed. Empires rose. Greece weakened. Rome looked upon me and called me Mars. At first, I resisted the name. Mars was not merely a god of bloodlust. He was father of a nation, guardian of fields, protector of borders, symbol of discipline and strength. The Romans honored aspects of me the Greeks had mocked. Under another name, I was allowed dignity. Is that not strange? A change of language, and suddenly the monster became a father. Romulus and Remus were called my sons. Rome traced its blood back to mine. Temples rose, priests carried sacred shields, armies marched beneath my protection. Yet the honor never fully healed me. Worship is not the same as understanding. An empire can praise war while ignoring the suffering of those who fight it. Rome loved Mars because Rome loved conquest. But I still heard the soldiers crying for their mothers. I heard them in every language. Humans pray to me before battle and curse me afterward. They ask for courage, then blame me for the cost of using it. They forge weapons. They draw borders. They teach sons to hate strangers. They send armies into fields. And when the dead return in silence, they whisper, Ares did this. No, I do not plant every hatred. I do not begin every war. I arrive when words have failed, when pride has poisoned reason, when fear has become stronger than mercy. I am not the first spark. I am the fire after no one chooses to extinguish it. Athena represents the war people justify. I represent the war they experience. That is why she is easier to honor. Strategy looks clean on parchment. Blood does not. There is something I have never told anyone. I am afraid, not of wounds, not of death, not of Zeus. I am afraid that the world is right about me. I am afraid that beneath every act of protection lies only violence. I am afraid Aphrodite loved an illusion. I am afraid my children inherited my worst parts. I am afraid that if war ever vanished, there would be nothing left of me. And I am afraid that war will never vanish at all. Mortals believe courage means feeling no fear. They are wrong. Courage is fear that chooses to move. I know this because fear rides beside me. He is my son. He has my eyes. Aphrodite once asked me why I loved her. I answered badly. I said she was beautiful. She laughed and told me beauty was the least interesting thing about her. The truth was harder to explain. I loved her because she proved I was more than the world had named me. War loved love. Love loved war. Not because opposites always attract, because they are never truly separate. People fight for what they love. They also destroy what they love when fear twists devotion into possession. Aphrodite brought out my gentleness. I brought out her fury. Together, we were not peace, but we were truth. I do not know whether gods can love forever. Forever is a cruel measure. I only know that when she enters a room, some part of me still removes its armor. You call me bloodthirsty, yet you cheer when your enemies fall. You call me savage, yet you build monuments to conquerors. You call me cruel, yet you send the young to die for the ambitions of the old. At least, I do not pretend. I have never called war clean. I have never promised that glory would erase grief. I have never said a just cause makes a blade merciful. Look at me, and you will see what conflict truly is. Not banners, not speeches, not polished armor beneath sunlight. You will see terror, rage, love, desperation, the instinct to protect, the desire to dominate. The moment a human being decides another human being must bleed. You hate me because I do not allow you to look away. My name is Ares. I am the son who was never good enough, the brother compared to wisdom and found wanting. the lover exposed and mocked, the father who killed for his child, the warrior who screamed when wounded, the god trapped in bronze and left to wonder whether anyone would come. I am rage, yes, but rage is often grief that has learned to carry a weapon. I am violence, yes, but violence is sometimes terror standing between danger and someone it loves. I am war, not the glorious war carved into temples, the real war, the shaking hands, the broken families, the loyalty, the horror, the courage, the regret. I do not ask you to worship me. I do not ask you to forgive me. I ask only that when you speak my name, you speak it truthfully. I was never the only monster on Olympus. I was merely the one who never learned how to hide it. Afterward, when the pages close, perhaps you expected a confession, an apology, a promise that I would become something gentler now that you have heard my story. I cannot give you that. I am still Ares. War has not vanished because my wounds were named. Rage does not disappear simply because someone finally understands where it came from. But perhaps understanding changes the way you look at it. When you hear my name, do not imagine only swords, burning cities, and men shouting beneath blood-red skies. Remember the trembling hand that still raises a shield. Remember the father standing between danger and his child. Remember the soldier who is afraid and moves forward anyway. Remember those who return from war carrying battles no one else can see. That is where you will find me. Not only in the violence, in the courage it demands, in the grief it leaves behind, in the silence afterward. The gods wrote me as a warning. Mortals used me as an excuse. Poets made me a monster because monsters are easier to understand than wounded sons. I have carried their version of my name long enough. Now you have heard mine. The pages may close, but war does not end when the story does. It waits in every wounded pride, every unspoken hatred, every moment when mercy is offered and refused. So when the fire rises again, do not ask only where Ares is. Ask who struck the first spark. Ask who watched it grow. Ask who could have stopped it and chose not to. Then speak my name, but speak it truthfully.